Welcome back to Ty and That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham, and this is my good buddy, Ty, Franck. We have a big job today, Ty. So enough, we have to cut through the niceties and get to work.
It's a two-parter. Just so you know, we're going to be talking about Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. We're going to be spoiling the shit out of them. If you haven't seen them, full spoiler alert in effect. We're talking about my favorite stunt person of all time and a little movie that she was in called Kill Bill 1 and 2.
She is you rave about her every time she comes up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And was she with Uma the whole time, or was she do anything else in the movie?
No, so I don't know if she doubled for anybody else, but she was Uma's double. So we're talking about Zoe Bell, the New Zealand stunt woman who actually got her big break on Xena, Warrior Princess. Mm-hmm. She was Lucy Lawless's stunt double for like multiple seasons of Xena, and did a bunch of really crazy stunts on Xena.
And she was in Grindhouse.
Yes, she was in Grindhouse. We can talk about that a little bit later, but the thing with Xena was whenever Lucy Lawless looked incredibly badass, it was actually Zoe Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so she doubles for Uma in this. She does a lot of insane stunts. I've watched a lot of behind the scenes filming stuff on Kill Bill, and the physical stunts that Zoe does are insane. She's insane. She also was in a terrible movie written by a friend of mine where she did. Zoe has the world record for the highest free fall performed by a female stunt person ever.
What was the movie?
Catwoman. The scene where Sharon Stone gets knocked off the building and falls like 100 stories. Mm-hmm. That was Zoe.
Was it further than Burt Reynolds and Hooper? Was it a further fall than that? Because that was the furthest fall of all time.
Yes. Well, but she has the record for a female stunt person.
Okay, excellent. The movie we're talking about today is Kill Bill. We haven't said that yet, have we?
Hey, but we did say Kill Bill.
Oh, I thought you said this is a movie with my favorite stunt person, and there's a little movie
we're going to talk
it.
about Kill Bill 1 and 2, so this is going to be a two-parter.
And you know what I thought would be easier, because it plays with chronologically a little bit weird between the volume 1 and 2. So I wrote out, and I could be wrong about, but kind of like everything in chronological order as it progresses the story. So we're not going back and be like, okay, now this happened in Bill or whatever. Going back to the flashbacks and stuff. You look apprehensive. Is that not the way?
Well, I mean, I think Quentin does that on purpose, and I think
I do too. And I think it serves well in the story. But I think like in terms, because when you set it up, at the wedding and the thing, because it was funny because Jen, when she didn't see the first one, but she saw the second one, and Jen hates to come in anything in the middle. I don't care. Like I'll just jump in and I can figure it out. She hates to come in the middle, but it was actually really great because you start with volume 1 and it tells you the story, and so anyway, so I just thought like we would list out in chronological order. This movie started on the set of Pulp Fiction with Tarantino having conversations with Uma Thurman. Uma, I guess, was saying, like I don't love doing movies anymore. I don't really love this thing. I'm having a good time with this, but I'm done. And he was just kind of not sitting well with him, and he's like, come on, and he ended up making sure she had a good time on the film. And she said, okay, I might still quit, but I'll do another film with you. And they came up with that idea at the spot. They were at a bar in Santa Monica. They sat down, and he has these long conversations about kung fu movies, the old westerns of the 70s, exploitation movies. And he was saying, I got a really great idea. And they just started spitballing, and it was actually Uma's idea, because he was saying, these movies, these revenge kung fu movies, you just start off where you're standing over them and they're, spitting out blood and they're breathing, and all the havoc has been wreaked already, and they and she said, I got an idea. What if you see me all beat up and dying, and the camera comes out and you see I'm in my wedding dress and I'm at a wedding, and that sparked him, and then he started writing right away.
Yeah, and it's, as openings go, it's a pretty powerful opening, because we see not just Uma Thurman in a wedding dress, but Uma Thurman pregnant, like really visibly pregnant in a wedding dress, with this character talking to her and talking about that you probably think I'm being sadistic, but this is me at my most merciful, right? And then he shoots her in the head. It's such a powerful moment because you're like, where are we going from here, right? You got pregnant Uma Thurman in a wedding dress and some dude just shot her in the head. It's such a hooky start. Yeah.
And, you know, one of the things that when we talk about the style and tone of this movie, you know, again, like I've said it many times, me and my dad used to spend, I think it was like watching Turner Classic Movies on Sunday, and you'd watch all these Westerns from the 70s and late 60s and over. And I'd watch Kung Fu movies. I'm showing my kid Kung Fu movies. The thing that Tarantino does is he has like an encyclopedic knowledge of movies and everything that he's ever saw and ever done. Everybody is influenced by somebody. Everybody, like it is, you know, people are pulling, because a lot of people say that Tarantino is doing this or stealing from this or taking. Yes, everybody's doing that. But he has such a strong cinematic vision that he can take these scores and you watching him as if you're watching him for the first time, because he can put it in the context of that. So if you watch a movie that's dated and it's like, oh, that was cool in that dime or that was cool in that day, but he makes you experience it for the first time and it is cool now. You know, when she walks in and sees Vivica Fox and it's that siren like, yeah, like he makes it like where it's like, oh, fucking, like it fires you up and it pumps you up, and it's not. So like Stranger Things there's a nostalgia factor to Stranger Things, right? You look at it and it's like a warm feeling like, oh, I remember that. That's nice, right?
I remember being a kid in the 80s.
Yeah, I remember being a kid in the 80s. This is something different. This is like reinventing it, and you're experiencing it almost for the first time, even though you've experienced before, but it's in the context of now, so it's cool now.
Well, I will say that one of the things that Tarantino does is he loves genres of film that the wider audience is not familiar with. Like you and I grew up watching Kung Fu movies. Most people didn't, right? Like most people have never seen, you know, Fist of the White Lotus and, you know, Master of the Flying Guillotine and all the. Now I did. I watched all those movies because there was like, when I was a kid, when I was like 10, there was a Saturday Action Theater was on TV. And it was always a Kung Fu movie followed by a Godzilla movie. It was like a 4-hour block. I never missed it. Like every Saturday, my ass was in front of the TV for 4 hours. I was watching a Kung Fu movie, then I was watching a Godzilla movie, right?
Right.
So I saw all those movies as a kid, and I think Tarantino did too, but most people didn't. Most people haven't seen those movies. So what he does is he takes a genre of film that most people they're aware that genre exists, but they don't have a real familiarity with it. And he takes it and he updates it and makes it cool and makes it modern, and then shows people now the thing he fell in love with as a kid that they probably haven't seen before. And that's kind of his repeated project. He does that over and over again. He's like, I loved this as a kid. You probably haven't seen this. Let me do a cool updated version of it that you'll fall in love with.
In the chapter of The Massacre at Two Pines, Tarantino is a master at scene construction, right? How he introduces characters. I mean, everybody knows about his dialogue, but like the scene structure. And when you see Uma she has a wedding dress, she's sitting around her friends. What's interesting is like, you know, we're going in chronological order, but where it is, you know, I think it's like it's in the volume 1, it's in the second movie when you see this. So it's probably confusing what we're doing right now. But anyway, when you see her in this and she's talking to her friends, there is a lightness to her performance. Right. Yeah. She's simpler in this than what she really is. She's this badass international assassin that is feared by all. But in this, it's like she's just hanging out with her girls. She's kind of fun, you know, getting married. She has a little funny quip about this bitch is pissing me off. Yeah. And you see this lightness to her. She goes outside. Bill is sitting on the bench, playing an instrument. What is the instrument he's playing? Do you know?
He's got that flute, that hand carved
it's like
wooden
a flute
flute
thing.
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting because you know when she sees him and when he sees her, you have so much information already.
Yep.
There is an underlying tension that is so taut that strings that whole scene together. And what's so chilling is that, you know, she says, "Are you going to be nice?"
Yeah.
You know? And he's like,
there's so much threat under that question.
So much threat. And he's like, I've never been nice. But he's so charming. And he's almost corny. You know, Kill Bill, in terms of like a character construction, like he's romantic. He's philosophical. He's completely honest about who he is.
Yep.
And when he meets the husband, there is so many pitfalls as a writer to tip off like, oh no, this is Bill. This is the main bad guy. Like he plays against type the whole time. Yep. And it's so brilliantly done. And he can take the time that he takes with the dialogue and in the endless conversation, because the tension is so taut, and you're like, it pulls you along because you know something's about to go down. And what you come to realize is that simplicity that she's brought herself down to in order to function in this new life, because she's trying to live a new life, it infuriates Bill. And it's the thing that puts him over the edge, because he knows she's so much more than that. It limits her. And then the guy that she's with, you know, it's like you can't even, you know, when he says, hey, do you want to give her away? And he's just a smile. And he says, that might be a little bit too much for me on this, you know, like that. And you're like, somebody's going to fucking die. Somebody's going to die. And it's just so powerful and so well done. And, you know, I read a couple of reviews, and they were talking about how he just pulls from different Kung Fu movies. How deep this movie is and how deep and interesting all of these characters are beyond. I watched all of those Kung Fu movies. I would go down my video store and you know, every week I'll take these two, and then I'll take the next two down, and I take the next two. This is more than that. He evolved it.
And that's what I was talking about, how he takes the things that he fell in love with as a kid and updates them and makes them cool for the modern era, and shows people, because the thing with Tarantino is he loves character interaction, right? He likes to come up with really interesting characters and put them in situations where they'll have very tense interactions. And he's been doing that since his very first movie. I mean, you watch Reservoir Dogs, people remember Reservoir Dogs as being a very violent film. It's actually not. It has a few moments of shocking violence, but most of it is just people talking to each other. But he takes these really interesting characters with all this implied backstory to them, and he puts them in incredibly tense situations where they're going to be bouncing off of each other. That's what he loves to do. So he'll take the format of a Kung Fu movie. And if you watch the old classic Kung Fu movies, which I watched a ton of as a kid, there's not a lot of character work, right? It's like, oh, you have murdered my master, I must avenge him. And then it's like 90 minutes of people karate fighting, right? What Bill does is he'll take that format of, you have killed my master, I must avenge him. And then he creates all these really interesting characters with all this implied backstory and puts them in tense scenes together so that they bounce off of each other. That's the part that he loves. And he writes the shit out of those moments. And we'll get to some of those moments later, you know, like when she you know, she interacts with O-Ren later in the Crazy 88 stuff. Those are the scenes that he's in love with. The Kung Fu movie is sort of the shape, but he's doing something with the characters that the Kung Fu movies never did. And that's what makes them fresh and interesting.
And Tarantino is sensitive, right? It's not like an 80s action movie where it's just all like, you know, ball sack and testosterone.
It's all machismo.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all machismo. Kill Bill is deeply in love with Beatrix, and she loves him. That's why the movie works so well. But he is the devil, and he is the scorpion that stung the frog. He's a scorpion. He's not going to change it. So she knows that when she has her daughter, her life completely changed, and her maternal instincts kick in, and she knows that if this daughter grows up with him, I know what she will become. He can't help it. And I love that Bill is honest about that. And so there's something tragic in two people that love each other, but the nature of who they are, they cannot exist with each other. And so then he must kill her, because the scene when Elle goes into the hospital and Uma's in a coma, and she's going to put poison in her veins and kill her. And then the phone rings, and it's Bill, and Bill can't go through with it because he's regretting it. He's depressed, and he's like, this girl We beat the shit out of her. I shot her in the head, and God bless her, she is still hanging on to life. And so we are not going to just poison her as like, you know, some non-compute, not somebody that doesn't matter.
And to that point, the thing that the repeated theme in Kill Bill is that respect between warriors. Like the thing that would show up a lot in the kung fu movies is that people who actually liked each other would have to fight to the death, but there was this respect, right? Like even as a guy was dying because he got defeated by his enemy, he'd still be like, "Oh, I respect you. You have defeated me. I give you the respect of being the better warrior." There's like this respect between warriors, and that shows up repeatedly in the Kill Bill movies. And this scene where he says, "Yeah, we beat the shit out of her. I shot her. That's fair. That's how warriors interact with each other." What warriors don't do is stick each other with poison while they're unconscious. And what he says is, we're not going to do that because that would lessen us. And it's like if she wakes up, and he even says, if she wakes up, we're going to kill her, but we're going to do it the right way. We're going to do it like warriors do it. We're not going to sneak around and poison each other while we're in our sleep. Yeah.
But what I love about it is the fact that he sent her to kill her and then changed his mind. And we learn later that he was agonizing, that he was in deep depression over what had happened. And Elle, you know, going back to the respect thing, she goes, "I despise you, but I respect you." Right before she's about to kill her. And I love when she's on the phone, right? She's like in the hospital. She's going to kill her. She's got her eye patch on. And he calls and she's like, "You don't know her anything. You don't know her fucking goddamn thing. You don't know her anything." Like, and you see, you're like, "Oh, okay. This is Bill's new woman." And she's like, squeeze. "Fuck this bitch." Yeah, this is a new squeeze. And she's like, "Fuck her. Let's get her out of her. You know, let's kill her." And it's you don't need to do that with exposition. You just see the way she reacts when Bill's like, "We can't go through this. We can't do it this way." You know, a great revenge movie, the shit that they go through, it makes you so mad that they went through it that you're like, you are along for the ride. You're rooting for the revenge. And the shit that happens to her in the hospital is horrific.
Yeah.
Is absolutely so. And I want to ask you about that, you know, with Buck and his character and what.
Well, his name is Buck and he's here to fuck.
He's Buck and he's here to fuck. Tarantino talks about it in his book. One of his favorite movies and one of the best times he had going to see a movie was, I think it was 1976, and it's Eaten Alive. You and I have talked about this on the podcast before. And in that movie, Robert Englund plays a guy named Buck. And he goes, he's about to hook up with a prostitute, and he's undoing his belt. And he goes, "My name's Buck, and I like to fuck." Yep. And so this was his kind of twisted homage back to that thing where he comes out and goes, "My name's Buck, and I like to fuck." Yep. And you know what? It's like, no matter how many times I see this is really, really disturbing. And I almost kind of forget about it.
It's
really
fucking disturbing.
It is so fucked up. And I kind of forget about it. And every time I'm watching, I'm like, no, he's not. That's not. And then you see that and you're like, this poor fucking. So she hears this fly. She wakes up. She doesn't have her fucking baby. She's been shot in the head. She's been beat up. Her husband's fucking killed. All of her new friends are killed. They robbed her of her life. Then she has to pretend that she's in a coma, and they're doing that to her.
Yep.
And it's just devastating to watch. And you were emotionally in the game at that point.
Yeah, and what Tarantino does is he does it all with implication, because we never actually see her actually be sexually assaulted. We know that the implication is that Buck has been selling her as a sex doll for money, right? For years he's been doing this, right? Because she's been in a coma for years. And so we get the implication of it, and we're furious about that. But the first time we actually see it, she fucks that dude up.
Oh yeah, like slams his head in the fucking door.
Well, no, so she fucks up the first dude. We don't see what she does to him other than bite his lip off.
Yeah.
And then when Buck comes in, she slashes his Achilles tendon, drops him to the floor, and then smashes his head in the door. And the anger there when she goes, "Your name is Buck, right? Slam. And you're here to fuck, right? Slam." It's just smashing his head. Like, so we get the implication of the assault without actually the prurient sort of seeing the assault actually happen, and we get all of the revenge feel good, right? We get all the revenge of like she's paying Buck back now. Buck gets to have his head smashed in the door because he was an asshole. Yeah,
we got to throw out a quick shout out to Sheriff Earl McGraw.
Oh,
I love
this actor. He's so good, and he plays two parts. He plays two parts in Kill Bill, and both of them are amazing. The other part we'll talk about when we do Esteban Viejo.
Get the fuck out of here! That's him.
Yes, I must warn you, I am susceptible to flattery.
I did not know that was him.
That's the same actor. He's fucking great.
We'll
fantastic. Talk more about him in part 2 when we talk about. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about him now because we're talking about him in this scene, and then we might as well just go the thing like that. So he was one of my favorite things in Dawn. What was it?
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Dusk Till Dawn. Oh, From Dusk Till Dawn.
He was one of my favorite things when he comes in. It's going to be a goddamn hot motherfucking miserable, hot day after another. And then he goes, "You shouldn't eat them goddamn microwave burritos. Them are for hippies on pot." he just cracks me up. So I thought
he's fantastic when he pulls up to the chapel.
He tells his
son number one.
He tells his son not to use foul language in the house of the Lord.
Yeah. You better shit can that. You better shit can that foul language. You're in a house of mercy.
You're in a house of mercy. But I always thought Tarantino just grabbed him off the streets of Laredo. No, and he was just a Texas Ranger.
No, he is an actor who's done a lot of work. He's always great.
You're blowing my fucking mind right now because I was going to talk about that guy and how sinister in his performance.
So yeah.
And I mean, let's talk about it. Let's just go there now because listen, if you would imagine what the devil is, right? Like what real evil is smarter to reveal what it is, right? So when you see villains constructed like this, and then you watch another movie where it's
they're chewing the scenery and shooting their own guys.
And I'm crazy. And I'm going to fucking kill you.
Yeah.
And everything. It's come on, dude. I mean, if you're not Jack Nicholson, you can't pull that off.
Yep.
And this guy is so charming. And he invites her to sit down and he has this conversation and he's so, smooth with the cigarette, and how he threatens her.
Yeah.
Is when he calls the waitress over.
Yep.
For you want a drink, and she sees what was done to that lady's face, and that's brilliant writing, right? That's how he threatens her,
and he's doing that with Bill too. All the villains in this are, I don't want to say gentle, but they come across as charming and hospitable, and you would want to hang out with them and have a drink, but they're the devil.
Yes, but it's not. But what's interesting is it's not repeating itself. It's all like fingerprints, right? It's completely a new expression. But I did not know that fucking actor was that guy in that. He's really good. I need to really see what else he's done. Has he worked a lot, or is he?
Tarantino's used it. So he was in Grindhouse. He was in the what? So there's Death Proof, and there's what's the other one? The not Death Proof one, the one that was directed by Rodriguez.
The
Planet Terror.
Planet Terror. So he's a character in Planet Terror. Where again he plays the sheriff. He plays the Texas Ranger kind of character. So yeah, I think Tarantino likes that guy. Likes to use him. He's been in a ton of stuff. If you look, can you look up his name real quick, Joseph?
I have his IMDb.
Yeah, if you look up his IMDb, he's been in a ton of stuff.
Michael Parks.
Yes, that's his name. Michael Parks. Thank you. He's been in a lot of stuff, but he's kind of a character actor. He's not usually the lead, but he's fantastic. And there's a great story. So the reason he plays Esteban Viejo in Kill Bill Part 2, we're jumping ahead, but the reason he plays that character is because when they did the table read, Esteban had not been cast yet. And so Tarantino's like, can somebody read for Esteban as we're doing the table read? And Michael Parks said, sure, I'll read for Esteban. And when they got to Esteban's part and Michael Parks read that part, he basically came up with that character in the moment. The accent, all of that stuff, sort of the mannerisms, all that stuff. He was doing it at the table. And Tarantino goes, well, I think we found Esteban. Like, we don't, like, I'm going to stop casting for that because we got it. He is right there.
That's amazing. Yeah. God, he's so good in that. He's captivating. There are some actors that no matter what, that you just can't take your eyes off them when they're doing their thing. Yeah. What did you think about the origin of Oren, the anime, in the middle of the film?
I mean, I was fine with it. I know Tarantino loves anime, and I think he just wanted to do an anime thing. I think telling that story in live action would have been very difficult for a couple of reasons. One, it would have been involved a bunch of more live action sequences, which dramatically raises your shooting time and expense. But the other thing is, part of the theme of it is potential child sexual assault, right? That boss Ishii or whatever his name is, when they bring the underage Oren in to be his sex toy, that's tough to do live action. That's hard to get away with that, right? So I get why he did what he did. It's weird to be watching a live action film and suddenly have an anime section in the middle, but it's Tarantino. You expect weirdness from him. I think it worked out fine.
I still don't know how I feel about it. I think that with Tarantino, the shit that he gets away with is like nobody else could get away with stuff like that. Yeah. Now, the animated sequence within itself was so well done, and it's such a great story, and I would watch that movie. Yeah. But something about
her dad, he was a beast.
Oh yeah, he was just fucking people
wrecking guys.
Just wrecking guys, and that's how fierce she would fight for your daughter, right?
Yeah.
And so all of that was fucking awesome. And then her stabbing that guy through the chest and then under the bed, and she's fucking blowing out their legs when they come in. All that was awesome.
Yeah.
But when I'm watching Kill Bill, it's easy for me to fall into the fairy tale, the kung fu fairy tale. Where I'm like, I can suspend my disbelief and go along with the ride. The anime kind of took me out of the story a little bit. Now I get back in it very fast and very easy, and I enjoy the anime what it is, but I don't know how I feel about it yet. But again, it is a memory. It is either playing around with memory.
I think that's part of what lets him get away with it is it's not even a memory. It is the fairy tale origin story.
Mm-hmm.
It's her telling the origin story of this other character. That's sort of this mythic origin story, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of why he gets away with it. But before we get too far into Oren, I don't want to skip over Vernita Green.
No, we're not skipping over. But
Oren, I don't want to skip over Copperhead.
No, we're not skipping over it.
Okay,
Vernita Green is actually after Oren.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're going chronological, not story order.
How the thing goes.
Right.
Yeah. And then, I mean, look, if we were really going chronologically, we would start with her training in the... and that's one thing that I loved about the old Kung Fu movies or the old like action movies in the past is their training sequence when they train.
And the mythical Kung Fu guy whose Kung Fu is so strong that he's immortal now. Like apparently he trained in Kung Fu so hard that he became immortal.
And he defies gravity. He can stand on the tip of your sword.
He has magic powers.
But that's what you remember when you were kids... And you thought, like, if you studied Kung Fu long enough, you could defy physics. Like, everything made sense. Like, there was magic, and that was the magic that you could do. And, that's where you would hear all the stories is like, this guy could punch through cinder blocks or whatever. Well, I guess you can do that. But, like, just shit that you would hear, like, local people is like, oh, yeah, he took karate for, like, 8 years, and he can, like, he tore out somebody's Adam's apple or, like, fucked him in his ear until he died, shit like that. And but there is a method to the madness. Like when he's breaking her wrist and twisting her arm, and and the shit that he said was hilarious. Like the shit how he kind of like cut her down and put her down, and he's like, it hurts my brain, when she talks and everything. But he makes her surrender. Yep. He makes her surrender to him. And he says, okay, now you feel completely helpless. Do you want the power I possess?
Yep.
And she says, yes. And he goes, now we can start.
Yeah.
And so
when he says, you're as helpless to me as a worm is to an eagle.
Yes.
Yeah. Like
that's badass.
Like there's literally no way. There's no way for you to do anything. There's no way for you to fight back.
Right.
And then that moment where he's like, okay, I'm going to let you keep this arm, but it belongs to me now. And since this arm belongs to me, I want it to be strong.
Right.
So you have to get that arm strong because I own that arm because I let you keep it. Yeah. And that all of that is just so like, yeah.
But
and we all think we would like, oh, I wish I had gone to Master Paime
dude, I used to dream about that as a kid. Like go to fun.
Except the reality is we would all be just murdered. We would just die. Like none of us has the internal fortitude to survive that.
What do you mean?
We would just die.
But the thing is like what I loved about this training sequence and the relationship that they created is he's so mean to her, but ultimately he cares about her. And when she finds out that Elle killed him, she gets infuriated. Yeah. So there was a love that was developed between the two. And that's smart. That's a smart way. Like if he was one note.
I don't know if Paime is capable of love, but I think he is capable of respect. And I think no matter what he threw at the bride, she took it and she powered through it and she kept going. And I think she earned his respect. And I think
she earned his respect, but I think Paime is capable of love. I think that when he taught her the heart collapsing punch, whatever, and when Bill found out that he taught her that, it really affected Bill because he was a more
Bill
prized.
Never learned it.
Bill never learned it. Yeah. So how smart is that? It's his way of saying that she exceeded Bill in with under his tutelage, and that she reached the highest level, and that in the reaction that she had to Elle killing her infuriated her. So there was a love that was forged and a respect that was forged within that relationship.
Well, and the difference between Bill and the bride under the tutelage of Paime is that Bill looks like Bill and the bride looks like Uma Thurman. So I get why Paime was a little softer.
That's a good point.
A little more likely to fall in love with the bride.
I mean, look, Paime might be like a philosopher, warrior, god, but he's still a man.
He's still a man, and
Uma Thurman
still looks like Uma Thurman.
Maybe there was a little bit to do with that. You know what I'm saying? We got to see Sonny Chiba in this. Now, in this movie, besides Zoe Bell, one of the real badasses in this is Sonny Chiba.
Yeah.
That guy has like 9 black belts, and he was like everybody in the movie and the behind the scenes talking about is like he's the guy that everybody looked up to. He's the guy that was the man back in the 70s and 80s coming up. And what did you think about when so this is Hattori Hanzo, this master Japanese swordsman. Is it ever clear? Did I miss it? What is his dispute with Bill?
They never say. And
I love that.
But they definitely imply that there is a long-standing dispute between the two of them. Because there's 2 pieces of information. One, even though Hattori Hanzo is a master sword maker, he has sworn a blood oath to never make another sword. Something happened there that made him swear a blood oath not to follow his vocation ever again. You get the sense that maybe Bill was involved in that, but they don't say what it is. And then the second thing is the only person that could get him to break his blood oath was Bill. Right? Because she says, I'm going to go kill Bill with the sword you make for me. And he's like, all right, I'm making you a sword.
You can sleep here. Give me a month. But he wouldn't even say his name. This is a great note. Like he just wrote his name in the window. And then he that's such a great detail. And I love that they don't explain everything because then you start thinking, because then in Kill Bill says later, because I'm an asshole or something, like, I'm a terrible person or something. Yep. So something really powerful happened.
I'm a murdering bastard. And there are consequences when you break the heart of a murdering bastard. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question real quick. In the origin of Oren, the anime, was the guy, the weird guy in white, was he Kill Bill? Was he Bill?
I don't think so.
There's some
they never say, and we never see that guy get killed. But I don't think Bill ever worked for, like, you never get the sense that Bill worked for anybody as like a enforcer.
Yeah, that's true.
He was like an independent operator, ran his own thing.
But there's fan speculation online that that's Bill, but what is that for? Yeah. But there's similarities. Like, it's interesting that they made all the similarities with his hair. He was younger, the way he moves, his face, his body.
But I don't think O-Ren goes to work for Bill if Bill's the one who stabbed her father in the back.
Good point. That's the point. And I love how O-Ren is almost cute, like the way they put so much detail in her little shoes and her little feet. And when she's at the Yakuza meeting and she's at the head of the
Yakuza meeting is great. Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like,
I'm okay with disagreement. And I encourage you, if I make a decision you don't agree with, come and talk to me about it. But the price for questioning either my Chinese or American heritage is I collect your fucking head.
I collect your fucking head.
Yep.
But what I love the details is he starts. So they're in this meeting and they're going back and forth. She's patient. She's kind. She's at the head of the fucking table. She's the most powerful one, but she has this cute little dress and she has and then he starts going on and she slowly pulls her chair out. She jumps on the table and you see her little feet thing, and it cuts off the top of his fucking head and it's so vicious and the blood is spurting everywhere and you're like, holy shit. And that's a fascinating character.
That's the thing, and that's what I said earlier, is that what Quentin Tarantino likes to do is he likes to take the format of an existing genre and then take that format and populate it with much more interesting characters than the original genre would do. So he loves making the most interesting version of every character. So O-Ren is super interesting, right? She's got this horrible backstory with her parents being murdered and somebody trying to sell her as a sex slave and her becoming an assassin. And now she's like this very like demure looking Asian woman who just happens to have taken over the top boss position of the Yakuza in Japan. Right? But definitely plays very demure, plays that sort of classic demure Japanese woman archetype. But we know that's not what she is because we see that moment and we're like, oh yeah, don't make a mistake.
Yeah, she's the most powerful person in the room and the most deadliest person in the room all at the same time.
Yep.
And whenever I have trouble like explaining what we talk about with fight consistency, I'm just going to point to House of the Blue Leaves because it is a masterclass in fight consistency. And I say, yes, this is how it's done. Clearly, Uma Thurman's character is the highest, is on top of the hierarchy of these assassins, and you think that only Bill is above her, but you learn at the end that she knows the death punch, that no, she's even above Bill, and it expresses itself and stays consistent throughout the whole film. And when the Crazy 88 and when those guys are coming out, the first layer of guys that are like, there's like a 3-layer prong of going through them, she cuts them in half like that. Like, and then each layer comes and the fight gets more and more difficult.
Yep.
First, they send Gogo Yubari. Now, if you were editing this film, because I feel like the origin of O-Ren tells the story of O-Ren, and I think she's the most interesting of the group. I do think Gogo's a fascinating character, but do we need her backstory?
Okay, so what Quentin is doing there, I think, is he's saying, I'm going to have a teenage girl in a Catholic schoolgirl uniform with this weird-ass weapon come fight Uma Thurman, and you need to believe she's actually a threat. So we're going to show a brief little moment why she's the head of O-Ren's security, why she's her bodyguard, why she's so fucking insane, and so you'll believe that she's actually a threat to the bride, right? And I think that's what he's doing there. So he's creating this weird character of this teenage girl in a Catholic schoolgirl uniform that is legitimately a threat to the badass sword fighter that we know the bride to be. And you need that little moment of, here's why. Because she's just fucking crazy.
Well, let me ask you a question. So what if we didn't get the backstory and O-Ren sends out the captain of her guard and it's this young girl in a Catholic outfit and she drops this weird weapon and you're like, what the fuck? Who is this girl? and then they fight, and she's a bad motherfucker and almost kills her. Wouldn't that be more interesting? The mystery of who she is and how is she in this thing and how is she a part of it? Because it would undermine your expectation when you see her, and it would constantly surprise you as the fight progressed because you saw her just slaughter all of these guys,
right?
And then she comes and she's the last one to fight.
Maybe, but I like the scene because I like the scene of the girl getting drunk in the bar and the guy hitting on her, and would you like to penetrate me? And he's like going like this, and then you just see him go, oh! And she's like, or is it I who have penetrated you?
Yeah,
and then he just falls to the floor in a pool of blood.
I enjoy it too, but I think Aren's origin story is more interesting and who Aren is, and so like I want my focus on her, and I would enjoy the mystery about this girl in a Catholic who's the baddest one of them all.
Right.
That is a masterpiece of a fight sequence.
Yep.
That the whole House of the Blue Leaves thing, and then when you really close it off and you finish it with their showdown in the back, and then it's like the snow seems it's almost like they're embracing that it's fake snow.
Right.
In there, like, don't you think so? It's like,
well, the whole thing is like this weird sort of constructed environment, like this. Yeah. Like the whole rooftop thing is like, it feels very artificial. And I think it's deliberately very artificial. Yeah.
But there's one detail I really find interesting and I want to throw in there. The little boy in the Crazy 88 and it's so consistent to this maternal instinct that she has consistent throughout the whole movie, even which we're about to get to when she's fighting Vivica Fox and her daughter shows up. Yep. But she sees this little boy and she bends him over her knee and spanks him with her sword. And it's just like, of course.
First, she metaphorically castrates him. Because she cuts his sword off. Right?
Right.
And then she swats him on the ass and says, "Go home to your mama." Yeah. But before we go all the way into that, I want to talk a little bit about my girl, Zoe Bell, because I've watched some behind the scenes stuff, and this fight, the big fight with the Crazy Eight at the House of the Blue Leaves, is all the close-ups are Uma, but all of the fight action is Zoe. She's the one who's doing those weird, like, where she'll like bend over backwards and swing the sword around, and all the spinning kicks and all that stuff is her. There's a scene I saw in one of the behind the scenes videos, and I may be getting some details wrong because I saw it many years ago, but there's a scene where they're talking about some of the fight blocking, right? And you've been in those scenes where you're blocking with the director and stuff. And the director and Tarantino's going, okay, and then we're going to have Uma run up the banister and do a flip onto the upper level, right? And so they're trying to figure out how to rig that. And Zoe just does it. She just runs, jumps up on with no rigging, runs up the banister and does a flip onto the thing. And she goes, "Yeah, I could just do that." And he's like, "Don't ever do that again. We're going to have you rigged so that you don't fall off and break your neck. Please don't ever do that again." But it was fucking badass. It was
That's awesome.
Zoe she is literally the human being that Uma is pretending to be.
Joseph, is it possible on the day to just have a clip of that flip as he's talking about it?
That's what I always do, man.
Yeah.
You're the best, dude. We're lucky to have such a wonderful producer like you.
Are you planning to kill Joseph? Why are you being so nice to him?
No,
are you setting him up for a murder?
Look, Joseph does not like that. Listen, Ty, I was inspired by your speech earlier. He's doing that other thing for you and doing all this.
Being nice to me.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to be replaced when I go on vacation. Okay, that's it. It's all good.
Oh, there is another detail that I think is there is a like Tarantino. There's a consistency with the way people react to the Hattori Hanzo sword. And when Uma tells Oren, when she said, "You have a nice sword," and she goes, "This and
the fact that she's immediately like, "You lie."
Yeah, so she says, she said it's a Hattori Hanzo. She goes, "You lie." Like she just viciously comes out and changes her demeanor. You lie. And then it just, the way people respond to the sword when Bud later says, I pawned it, and he says, you pawned a Hattori Hanzo sword.
Yeah.
And he's like,
I love it because he's like, that's priceless. He's like, not in El Paso, it ain't. It got me $300 for it in El Paso.
$250. Yeah. And, it's just good writing and great detail. Okay, we're at your girl now. This is the one you wanted to talk about.
I told my story. That sequence where she runs up the railing.
No. I'm talking about the Vivica Fox.
Oh, Vivica Fox, right? Okay, yeah. So, I just didn't want to skip over her because I think that as the first fight is such a good first fight. I'm glad that the story is told out of order.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you showed the story of the bride fighting with the Crazy 88 and murdering everybody, she kills like 1,000 guys, and then takes out Oren, and then went to the Vivica Fox fight, we just expect her to immediately win, right? Like there's no tension there. There's no suspense.
If you start out like you're blown out after the crazy, you need to smoke a cigarette after and like process it, and
wipe
so
yourself
it's not
off with a towel.
You wipe yourself off with a towel. So it's, and what I love is it's not like, let me reconstruct the story to where that's the last fight. Like that's the pyramid. It's like, no, when she finishes the Vivica Fox fights and she crosses out the list, the Oren is already crossed out. So it's just interesting how that happens. And now you're like, wait, a minute. What the thing? Anyway, so go ahead.
No, I like that they start with that fight because it's so brutal. It's so vicious, and it shows that the other members of the Deadly Viper assassination squad are a threat to Uma, that they're not maybe as good, but they're in the same league as she is in their fighting skills, because she doesn't just run over the top of Vivica Fox. It is a brutal knockdown, drag out fight. And talking about fight consistency, every time the bride fights with one of the other members of the Deadly Viper assassination squad, they are always a threat to her. Oren cuts her multiple times in their sword fight on the roof, right? She slices her back open. She slices her leg open. She fucks her up. When she fights with Vivica, Vivica fucks her up. When she fights with Elle in the trailer, Elle fucks her up, right? So every time she fights one of the other members of the assassination squad, they are always a threat to her. And I like that they start with her fighting Vivica, and Vivica being like, if the bride is 100%, Vivica's like 97%. She's almost as badass.
It's kind of like you look at it like if you were like some guys that you roll with, and you're like, okay, if we roll 10 times, I'd probably win 8 of those times.
Right, but I'm going to make a mistake, and you're going to.
But I'm going to get
one
caught.
Time.
And
yep.
What I love about these fight scenes, these movies, is that the people that she's fighting, they respect her, and they know that she's one rung better than they are. But they're going to fucking give it all
they're
they got
fighting
because
for their lives.
This might be the other two. This might be the one where they get one over on her, and they almost do. They almost do. I think Oren, and again, like this is like how specific the fight consistency is. I actually think Oren believes she's on par with. I think that she thinks that she could win. Everybody else that she fights, Elle, Michael Madsen, and Vivica Fox, are like,
I disagree.
Odds are in her favor.
I think Elle thinks she's better.
Oh, interesting.
Elle comes in with such confidence, such cockiness in that
you might
fight.
Be right. Yeah.
I think she thinks she's better.
That actually would be a better story because she's always been jealous of her. She's probably always like, why does Bill like her? I'm better than she is.
I'm better than her. Yeah.
But didn't she say right before she killed her, like, didn't she say you're one of the baddest warriors or something that I've ever seen, or there's something? Yeah. So
no, I think Elle respects the bride as a warrior and sees her as a worthy opponent, but I think Elle thinks she's going to win.
But what a wonderful way to open the story, because sorry, I tried this chronological thing and maybe it was the best way to do it, but forgive me, patrons, but or listeners. But when she opens the door and Vivica Fox at the door and it's the sign like, Like those 70s sirens, like, Ironsides is playing. You're like, it fucking hypes you. And you're like, who is this? And she's in like this really docile, quaint little home, little white picket fence.
It's very suburban.
Very suburban, and it's, is docile the right word? No, it's the wrong word, right?
No, that's the wrong word. You're talking about domestic.
Domestic, quaint.
Very domestic.
Yeah, very domestic. And she opens the door, and they don't fuck
around.
Yeah, they're fucking just drilling each other in the fucking. You're like, whoa! I mean, and it is vicious. They're fucking gritting their teeth and grunting, and it's not like polished like most kung fu movies. Like they're clawing each other's faces off.
Well, and the thing that Bill does in the Kill Bill movies that differs from the kung fu movies is all of the blows feel like they have weight, like they hurt. And you get kicked in the leg and you start limping. You don't just bounce back, right?
Right.
And as they accumulate damage, as they damage each other, it changes the nature of the fight because they're accumulating damage now. And that changes their fight, and that makes them slower, it makes them weaker. So you get that sense that if you get stabbed in the leg in this, you're not just going to walk that off. You're going to be fucking limping. You're hurt, right?
Right.
And this fight definitely sets the tone of that, because the bride doesn't just walk this shit off, man. She's cut. She's like wrapping by the midpoint of the fight, she's got to wrap a towel around her arm because her arm is sliced open. Yeah, I mean, they're both fucked up.
You're seeing the consequences of it, and they're wrecking that little house. They're fucking.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they're fucking wrecking that little house. There is Vivica Fox is doing what Uma wanted to do. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, and she's living the life she stole from Uma Thurman.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so that's in the conversation at the end of this scene is like, I'm not going to kill you in front of your daughter, but stop holding her in front of my face because you took my daughter. Yep. You're doing what I wanted to do, but you took that right away from me.
Yep.
And I will kill you. And she says, you're more rational than Bill said that you were. And she goes, oh, I'm rational. I just lack an empathy.
Yeah. and mercy.
And mercy. I just lack an empathy and mercy. There's a strong theme of the maternal instinct and the strength of women. And there's a decency with these women. So when they drop the little girl off at the bus, and I mean, it's just so good to see. It's such a great scene because you're so caught up in the fight. The bus drops off the little girl. They fucking destroyed this house.
Yep.
And you're like, what is going to happen? How is this going to go down? And when the girl walks in the house and they both put the knives behind their back, it adds such a different, because this is one of the earlier scenes, so you don't really know who Uma is, but it adds such a different dimension.
Yes.
And a layer, like, okay, who is this girl? What is she going to do?
I love the, what happened? The dog got in here, acted a damn fool. And the little kid's like, fool. Buddy did this?
Jesus Christ, Buddy did this? Yeah. So then they go to the kitchen, and, back to what we were saying earlier, they basically have the conversation of like, look, I'm not going to kill you in front of your little girl. You can relax. Yeah. But you will die because you took this from me. I'm trying to do what you did, and you took this from me. It also goes to the scene where Uma when she finds out she's pregnant and the assassin gets the jump on her and he has a shotgun and she's like, how good are you with that shotgun? And she's like, I'm a motherfucking surgeon with this shotgun.
I'm a fucking surgeon with a shotgun. Not that it matters at this range.
Not that it matters from this range. And she tells her about, listen, I just tested, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
And then you're watching this and you're like, when that girl pauses and she's like, bullshit. And then she reaches down to, it's just so interesting because you're like, what are you going to, you're a killer. Like you have a code, you have a decency about you. And then when she's leaving and the door shuts and you see her face in the shotgun hole and she goes, congratulations. So then, it goes back to this respect for Vivica. And she says, do you want a coffee? And he's like, yeah, and she's making her coffee. And it's so interesting and to watch. Now, my question to you, what do you think about, so she makes her coffee, they're in a conversation. I love the surprise of like her having a gun in the Fruity Pebbles box. and shoots at her. Did they set up that she wasn't? Were they talking about before that she wasn't great with firearms? Or no. So what do you think about her missing?
You're not aiming. You're hip firing, right? Because you're not aiming the gun; it's inside the box. So it's good as a surprise attack, but it's not a great way to be accurate with your shots, right? If your hand is jammed into a cereal box holding a gun, you're not exactly aiming down the sights.
Okay. I can get behind that. I just don't like the idea of Uma being lucky in that, and that's why she survived. Because if that shot was dead on.
It's not luck, because the thing is, you fire your first shot, you see where the bullet went, you're going to adjust, and your second shot's going to be on target, right? So if she had gotten to fire a second shot, Uma Thurman dies.
But if she landed that first shot, Uma dies.
Right, but I'm just saying though that.
But it's lucky that she missed.
Sure.
And then as soon as she shot, she reacted in a way and she killed her, which is everything like that. I have this memory of like her saying something like, "You're good with a blade, but you weren't good," or
no. She says, Bill always said you were one of the best women he'd ever seen with a knife, and Vivica says, "Fuck you, bitch! I know for a fact he didn't qualify that shit." Right? It says nothing about guns. It just says that she was mostly a knife fighter.
Okay, because I was like, maybe they set this up.
Yeah.
Maybe they set it up or whatever, but these guys are, the baddest assassins on the planet. I mean, I guess you're right. Maybe the cereal box obscured or whatever, but if she was lucky, she would have hit Uma.
Sure.
And
and as I said, like, you're firing the first shot, you're firing to see where that first shot goes. You're going to adjust. The second shot is definitely going to hit.
It's like a jab. Yeah. But but then I love that the maternity instinct only goes so far, because when her little girl comes down and she's taking out the knife and cleaning on her pants, she's like, "I didn't want to do this in front of you, but when you get older, if you're still sore, I'll be waiting."
Yeah. Come find me.
You're like, fuck yeah. And it's like, because that girl could have her own Conan origin story, like where they kill the parents and it's like they come and do that. And I just like, it's just terrific.
Because Uma's entire motivation, this entire, 5 hours of movie that we're going to watch with part 1 and 2, her entire motivation is revenge. She understands revenge.
Mm-hmm.
She's looking at the logo going, someday you might want revenge. If you do, I understand. You can come find me. I understand the motivation.
That's what I love most about Bud's speech when he's talking to Bill. By the way, I love that they had this falling out that is not explained.
Yep.
And Bill is, it's his brother. Now, what people do in relationships in fictional situations, in like lesser movies, if they're mad at each other, it's like across the board. Like they're mad, they want, everything like that. But this one, but as the movie progresses, you realize how much they love each other, which then makes their falling out that much more interesting. And I'll go through the ways of how you know that, the details. But he's mad at Bill, and he's like, "You still mad at me?" And that's why he said he pawned the sword, he didn't pawn the sword. So there's some kind of tension, or there's some kind of. But when he says, because Bill's like, "Have you been practicing with a sword? Have you been, and like, are you ready? Are you prepared?" And he's like, "Fuck no, I've been drinking, being out here in the thing, like, I'm fucked." And he says, "That woman deserves her vengeance. She deserves, and when she shows up, if she kills me, that's the way it should be. And that's the way it is. And I'm okay with that. I accept that."
Well, it's actually a little more subtle. I agree with what you're saying, but it's a little even more subtle than that, because he says, "That woman deserves her revenge, and we deserve to die." But then again, so does she. So we'll just see.
That's
won't
true.
We? We'll just see.
That's a
what
great
he's
point.
Saying is, if she kills me, I had it coming. If I kill her, she had it coming.
Right.
So we'll just see. We'll just see how it turns out.
Yeah.
Hey guys, we're going to stop here for this week. Thanks for going along with us on our very confusing and muddled together Kill Bill and Kill Bill 1 and 2 retrospective. We apologize for how muddy it is, but Wes is dealing with dementia right now, so putting together a cohesive plan. He's not going to be able to do that.
Is it doing the thing in chronological order.
Yeah, and then deciding not to do chronological, and then
no, we did do chronological, but there was a few things where
it's a bit of a mess. But we appreciate you coming along on this journey with us, and we hope we see you next week when we do the second half of this, which will include some things from Kill Bill 2.
Welcome